Hello. All right, so we're gonna do a little test here into a little chaotic wander down the rabbit hole, which is the infinite days Rome graph. So yeah, there's a bunch of pages, and we're gonna let this extension from the Rome depot, which is random block, which I've just installed. Anyone can use this if they install it on the graph. So yeah, you could get here by just going for infinite days, go to about. So there's a few essays I wrote that are in this graph, but mostly it is a connected knowledge base of David Deutsch, Karl Popper, Feynman, and others, including myself. And it's kind of like my own personal critical rationalist or philosophical knowledge base or Wikipedia. So we'll go down and we shall, if you go to daily notes, which is how you use it on the daily, but really, here's the universal contents of like little, but that's boring. No one wants to just be like, these are top essays, blah, blah. Let's embrace chaos, hit random block, and see where we end up. Oh, this idea of a universal constructor. I don't know if this is defined anywhere. Like if we look at our library for Kindle, or actually if I open up this graph and bring in, let me in. Okay. Ba-ba-bum. I don't even know what that is. That is the most important. Oh, man. All right, so let's get in here. All right, which graph is this? This is BOI. So I've exported this into graph here. Let's bring this here and double up the graphs. And let's add to this. Let's find if he actually gives a nice, concise definition of a universal constructor. Let's go to this page and see. So he mentions it a couple times here. And then let's open up. Nope. Let's go to fabric. Actually, this will be easier. Just go to the fabric of reality on this encrypted graph. Email me if you own the book and if you want access. I won't give you edit access, but you can read the book and copy it to your own graph if you like. Where am I? I'm here. Let's put me there. So let's also do a search here. And let's get, so we have universality. Let's just reduce typing. Has this been said anywhere? No, it wasn't a concept in the fabric of reality. Super interesting. Let's see just constructor. No, interesting. But we know what universality is. So that's one I've linked. But universality is mentioned. And this is very similar to the app David made, Mr. Deutsch, the professor. If you go to his website, David Deutsch, Oxford, what's going on? Haha! So I'm doing this because of this tweet, pretty much. I will sell you these. I don't know how much. I I quarry the granite that this rock is the basis of, and then use a diamond grinder to get the stock right. But this, it's funny. Pardon the pun, but this concordance app is very similar to Rome in that it counts references of certain words. And I guess the idea here was so you don't repeat yourself, because, you know, if you've read Deutsch, you know, you might know a common word is like parochial. And you just couldn't find a better word. It's like you narrow-minded kind of fits, but not really. But I freaking love this meme. Yeah, these will be for sale at some point if I am motivated to do it. Yeah, there will be a shop on Infinite Days at some point, but I also have a day job, so. So universality was mentioned 31 times, or 32 times in the Fabric of Reality. Let's do that same query in, let's see, also, let's go lowercase universality, jump to universality. Funny enough, universality was, oh shit. It's lowercase universality. And then enter. Yes, universality. 70 times. So the beginning of infinity is much more universal than the Fabric of Reality. Who would have thought? A book on the theme of progress is different than the theme of a theory of everything. Very interesting. All right. So we can't really pull into, copyright's such a bitch. Once Deutsch's books are in the public domain or something, it's going to be much more interesting in terms of tools for thought, knowledge management, freedom of information. But I've also installed the same extension, random blocks. So let's move on to another topic. That was a cool little deep dive into a really big theme of the book, which is universality. And I guess before I move on, let's pick some. Let me just close my eyes, and then we'll read the block we're on. Creation. Oh, good chapter. All right, now I could read. Let's make this a little larger. So what do we got here? Oh, cool. We got the summary of chapter 4. That's amazing. The evolution of biological adaptations and the creation of human knowledge share deep similarities, but also important differences. The main similarities, genes and ideas, are both replicators. Knowledge and adaptations are both hard to vary. The main difference, human knowledge can be explanatory and have great reach. Adaptations are never explanatory and rarely have much reach beyond the situations in which they evolved. False explanations of biological evolution have counterparts in false explanations of the growth of human knowledge. For instance, Lamarckism is the counterpart of inductivism. I think we should pause there just to let brains process information, but also let's dive into Lamarckism real quick. And yeah, we'll get there we go. There's the terminology. It's a mistaken evolutionary theory based on the idea that biological adaptations are improvements acquired by an organism during its lifetime and then inherited by its descendants. So yeah, it's the idea that giraffes, over their lifetimes grew longer necks, but really, there was mutations in their genome, and then the giraffes who were taller outcompeted, or the genes specifically for those adaptations survived more so than the genes that did not convey height, if I'm not mistaken. So let's go back to this block. So, for instance, Lamarckism is the counterpart of inductivism. Inductivism, I'm not just going to keep reading definitions because that would be freaking boring, I guess, unless you're really on board. with all the isms. But inductivism, it's extrapolation. It's the idea that, oh, this is a good part. Let's just highlight this. The key wisdom was repetition, blah, 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 blah. So if you repeat an experiment, it's the whole, justifying the idea that all swans are white just because you only see white swans, and then a black swan comes, and that kind of puts a huge fly in the ointment of that theory of knowledge. So we'll move on. Back. Let's finish a block of reading. For instance, Lamarckism is the counterpart of inductivism. William Paley's version of the argument from design clarified what does or what does not have the appearance of design, scare quotes, and hence what cannot be explained as the outcome of chance alone, namely hard to vary adaptation to a purpose. The origin of this must be the creation of knowledge. Biological evolution does not optimize benefits to the species, the group, the individual, or even the gene, but only the ability of the gene to spread through the population. This is what I was going on about giraffes. Such benefits can nevertheless happen because the universality of laws of nature and the reach of some of the knowledge that is created. I think his example in the book is thinking about how a bird exploits the mechanics of, or the natural laws of aerodynamics. It's knowledge without a knower, which there's a nice line of in this video. What is optimism? Talking about genes. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. The fine-tuning of the laws or constants of physics has been used as a modern form of the argument from design. For the usual reasons, it is not a good argument for a supernatural cause. But anthropomorphic theories that try to account for it as a pure selection effect from an infinite number of different universes. See, this is bringing in neo-Darwinism into the fold of a quantum mechanical conception of essentially the theory of everything that was the thesis of the fabric of reality. But anthropocentric, why is that word so hard for me? But I got such a big mouth, it's hard to move and articulate the things. But now I'm just going to shoot myself. Hold on. And we're back. But anthropic theories that try to account for it as a pure selection effect from an infinite number of different universes are, by themselves, bad explanations too, in part because most logically possible laws are themselves bad explanations. Bada boom! All right. So, let's end it with a live commentary of this reference video, so we could get you guys and gals a how would I say this? More of a complete thread of thought.
That's possible because of a momentous dichotomy.
Maybe I'll have to add this audio in, or you just play it. We'll start it over, and if this audio doesn't sound great, we shall not do anything about it, because I don't really give a shit right now.
We know that's possible because of a momentous dichotomy.
We know, and this is I have show notes for all this. So the first one was, he's talking about optimism, and he's talking about the thing that we know is possible, which is that we can make progress, pretty much.
That follows directly from the rejection of the supernatural. Namely, every transformation of physical systems that is not forbidden by laws of physics is achievable given the right knowledge. And hence, The rational attitude to the future is what I call optimism, the principle of optimism, namely that all evils are caused by lack of knowledge. That isn't a prophecy of success. It's an explanation for failure. If we fail at anything that's physically possible, it's because of some knowledge that we fail to create.
The way I
All right, so that is, if you follow me on Twitter, you will see this quote, which is from chapter 9, if I am correct, with my recitation of Bible verses, which is not in this graph, which is in this graph. Number 9. So this is also just personal notes. But if we look at this chapter here and we expand all these blocks, we could go to the bottom of this page and see where that quote came from. This is terminology of chapter 9, and it has blind optimism, blind pessimism, which is a very good distinction to have, because we have this conception of the glass being half full. If you're an optimist, an optimist is never, or a pessimist is never disappointed. But a pessimist also doesn't make progress. So, I read some of, to have a tech tie-in here, we could see something like 0 to 1. I haven't read this in a while. Dang. Computer's like almost a year old and I haven't opened 0 to 1. Look at me. The European Central Bank doesn't stand for anything, but dude, Teal goes so hard. It's quite lovely. We're going to look at, I think he mentioned, I couldn't really tell you where he mentions it. Does anyone else think the Kindle app is just a blight on humanity? That if Amazon didn't capture ebooks and someone else did, we would be better off. Like, a world with Barnes and Noble might be better than Kindle at this point. Bezos, suck it, honestly. You look like a dick, like just, you bald head, but Christ, this is, damn, this is absurd. So we're going to go, wow. All right. I'm going to try to remember what force quit is. I'm going to look it up on my phone because this is killing me. OS X force quit. What is the hotkey? Option, Command Escape. Yes. All right, kill it with fire. I'm going to skip that, and then I'm going to also try and end this in a couple minutes. So 20 minutes seems like a good round number. So where were we? We were talking about optimism and how that ties into biology, and the threads here are really just critical rationalist thought in this infinite days Rome graph. So continue.
Fail at anything that's physically possible, it's because of some knowledge that we fail to create.
The way I think of knowledge is broader than the usual use of those terms, and yet paradoxically closer to the common sense use of the term, because philosophers have almost defined it out of existence. Knowledge is a kind of information. That's the simple thing. It's something which could have been otherwise and is one particular way. And the particular way it is that it says something true and useful about the world. Now, knowledge is in a sense an abstract thing because it's independent of its physical instantiation. I can speak words which embody some knowledge. I can write them down. They can exist as movements of electrons in a computer, and so on, thousands of different ways. So knowledge isn't dependent on any particular instantiation. On the other hand, it does have the property that when it is instantiated, it tends to remain so. So the difference between, let's say, a piece of speculation by a scientist, which he writes down, and then that turns out to be a genuine piece of knowledge, that will be the piece of paper that he does not throw in the waste paper basket. And that's the piece that will be published, and that's the piece which will be studied by other scientists and so on. So it is a piece of information that has the property of keeping itself physically instantiated, causing itself to be physically instantiated once it already is. Once you think of knowledge that way, you realize that, for example, the pattern of base pairs in the DNA of a gene also constitute knowledge. And that in turn connects with Karl Popper's concept of knowledge, which is knowledge that doesn't have to have a knowing subject. It can exist in books abstractly, or it can exist in the mind, or people can have knowledge that they don't even know they have.
All right. I think we'll end it there because I don't want this to get too long, but this idea of knowledge without a knower, and this idea of what is knowledge, and this is a previous form of where he's at. I think in the last podcast he did with David Deutsch podcast. He has a new conception of knowledge, which is I love their transcripts. They're so great. So if we go to knowledge, there's only 195 references. All right, I think we're getting there. For example, I can't do a David Deutsch accent. It's just it's so robotic. It's I kid. It's just tight. He is very tight, concise, clears, no ums and ahs. All right, did I miss it? There you go. Knowledge is just a matter of belief. Knowledge isn't just a matter of belief, and it's not just a matter of human psychology. It's information that has causal power. So I guess that does overlap with a lot of what he's saying here in this podcast. If you want to check it out, this is from what got a lot of people onto the Deutsch bandwagon, which was Sam Harris's conversation, because a lot of young men like myself fell into this online thing of the new atheists and following Deutsch, and following Dawkins and Sam Harris and Dennett and Hitchens, because they were really like the pioneers of this secular thought and in the social media age. But if you see that, that conception of knowledge and how deep it really goes and how broad it is, it really shows you a frame or a perspective of the world that is inaccessible without connecting it to a cohesive worldview, which, was put forward in the Fabric of Reality. And when you're talking about universal laws, you have to have this deeply theoretical, abstract view of knowledge, but the concrete of it is, ideas and genes, things you could touch, organisms, instructions, recipes, for very complex things, including ourselves, because we are biological creatures. But I'll end it there. If you stuck with me this long, congratulations. Thank you so much.